Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vicious Fun commentary. It's Cody Callahan, the producer and director, talking, and I'm joined by a gang of hooligans. I'll let everybody else introduce themselves so you know the sound of their sweet voices.
Hi, this is Chad Archibald, the producer of the film.
James Villeneuve, writer.
Chris Smets, associate producer and co-writer.
Steph Copeland, composer.
Jeff Mahar, cinematographer.
Welcome, everybody.
It's good to hear your voices
Hello.
again. It's been a while.
Hello.
Here we are. I guess start of Vicious Fun. Let's dive in. This was actually, I think this is our second day of shooting, right?
No, this is the first day, I think.
Day one, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When did we do that?
16 hours of shooting, 80 seconds of content.
Didn't you say, Jeff, like this was the lowest page count for a shoot day on a Black Fawn Films ever?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was like 3/4 of a page.
Still use that 16 hours.
And I feel like the last day we shot like 3 hours worth in 4 hours.
That's kind of always the way it goes, though, no?
Yeah, and this was our first day kind of experiencing shooting something in the 80s, right? Looking at everything going, is it 80s? What's not 80s? What's in the frame right now that's not from the 80s?
Neon smoke. This was also the first time that we never tested out all those smoke machines to see if we liked the look. We just did it and started shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this was a motel just outside of Hamilton, Ontario. We went there for one day, and we brought that sweet telephone booth in there.
And Cody, this is your shot here. We did this in Let Her Out as well, where the camera stays pointing at one thing, but the car almost rotates around it.
It's a very cool shot.
Yeah, I feel like after we did it here, we kind of decided to try to do something like that on every film moving forward.
Yeah. It's like our Spike Lee shot.
This is the for me, this was a controversial scene. I argued with Chris and Cody about this scene and I lost. I in my mind, I wondered that we should make this guy seem non-threatening. So she just seems like a serial killer on her own. But, it ends up being really cool. But yeah, this scene, originally we were batting it around back and forth. Like, should he just seem like a regular dude? No, he should have knives and maybe seem creepy. So I don't know, Chris or Cody, thoughts?
Well, there was a point where, the original conception of the scene was the opening of the movie that we see next. But I like the fact that it could go either way. You could be misinterpreting whether or not he's actually a scary dude until you actually find him in the ice chest later.
I don't know. It kind of felt appropriate considering everybody knows what they were getting into the movie. And it kind of felt appropriate to start off with like your classic serial killer and then sort of flip it on its head when Carrie takes him out. Kind of just felt more appropriate to what we were trying to do. In the end.
Mm. Hey, a bunch of us came in and shot this before you guys started shooting. There's like 4 or 5 of us shooting this, and you guys were like sleeping and waiting to start your shoot. I remember. Those fun times.
Yeah, and that was actually a mask that I bought at Dollarama and painted up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a lot of stuff in this movie, and we'll go through it as we're watching, but that was shot in the same studios. So, for example, that school shot that we just saw, like the character walking down the hallway with the chainsaw or whatever, it's actually in a school that we built the set for the bar in. That's also the outside of it's also the Chinese food restaurant. And this set here is actually just one of the rooms that's in the police station that we shoot later on in the film. So a lot of this movie actually takes place in a studio that just had a ton of different sets in it.
Gord Rand is the guy who plays the 80s director in this scene. I think Smets, that was your suggestion.
Well, he
bring him out.
Yeah, he did on Orphan Black with Ari, which I'd
Right.
also worked on, and I remember him looking with this had this sort of '80s John Landis kind of appearance. So when James and I were working on the scene with the director, I thought he should look a little bit like this guy, and then he ended up being the guy that you cast, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, he was great.
Hey, Smets, do you remember when we were writing this scene, the idea, I guess we could talk about the idea of why this scene is even in the movie. And I guess just to basically establish our lead character as kind of a dork and a bit of a jerk, because it's more fun to see him squirm because he thinks he's so clever, I guess, right? Like you can see what he thinks of himself in this scene. I remember you and I we had a lot more ridiculous dialogue for him in this scene than we ended up putting in the script, I think.
I think
Well-
yeah, there's probably twice as much back and forth originally.
Yeah, and I think this scene was even longer, and then this this ran into the scene where he's actually writing his review. But in the edit, it just he actually just came off too in your face as dickhead. So we had to kind of scale it back a little.
James, am
Yeah,
I crazy, or was there a point where before it was set in the '80s, this guy was actually like a podcaster, like an annoying?
Well,
Podcast
I don't think he was that fleshed out at the time, but the point, he really is an avatar for, his entire character is an avatar for sort of entitled modern internet nerd. And since we're not in the modern times of the movie, like, again, we just pushed everything back, but he is meant to be a modern character, right? Like that was the idea with him. He was never meant to be an average Joe. We wanted somebody who we could make fun of and who is full of himself, and we'd enjoy watching sort of, get shown up for being kind of, I don't know, he thinks he's smarter than he is, I guess.
Yeah, he's the classic entitled fan.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea behind, and around the edges, like entitled to romance, entitled to, like, he thinks the whole thing with the roommate, the whole idea with the roommate is that she's pretty, and so obviously he must like her. Right? There's no choice.
Yeah, because I think from the get-go, even like in the original treatment, he was always I think he was always like a reviewer, but I seem to remember the opening being like, I think James, you had written it, he was like in a coffee shop on his laptop and stuff like that. We had always kind of made him a bit of a dick, but definitely not where we took it in the final script.
Yeah,
He was
for sure.
off the top. I think it was a good change, and you guys both pushed for that to make him a little more entitled, and so that he actually learned something.
And do you guys actually want to chat a little bit about why you changed it from a modern film to a film that takes place in the 80s?
2 words: cell phones.
Yeah, that was basically it. And it's funny because that has ended up becoming a continuing point of criticism in a lot of some of the more negative reviews. And obviously these guys just set it in the 80s, so we'd have to avoid cell phones. And it's like, yeah, that's that's a great reason to set it in the 80s.
But you know what? I don't even think that's always the criticism. Sometimes it's just like, oh, they're riding the 80s bandwagon, which, honestly, when Chris, when you and I decided we wanted to push it back in time to avoid cell phones, we actually first said the 70s. And Chad and Cody were like, that's too expensive, but we can do the 80s.
Yeah.
So we did the 80s.
It also felt way more appropriate to be in the 80s for the content that we were making.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean the 80s are they're scarier. It's like when we live in a world, like everyone feels pretty safe these days. We all have cell phones, things like that. That's why movies, it's more difficult to make the films that you can make in the 80s, that would felt so scary, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, anything like that. Like all those films back then, they just like, you couldn't pull out a cell phone. Like you were on your own. Your car breaks down, you're screwed, So it's a better era for horror too. And I mean, a lot of the characters in this as well, it's like they're characters that are based on characters from that era. Like as much as it was like the idea came from slimming it down or changing it to eliminate cell phones, it felt like the content and the story lended itself to being in the 80s as well. So whenever, the idea kind of came around and we all discussed, it was like, it feels right. Like it doesn't feel like we're forcing it into the 80s. It feels like this could live in the 80s, and we could probably have a lot of great ideas to kind of expand it from there.
Yeah, and I guess that what makes it not an '80s movie is we just tried to avoid the retrograde kind of regressive humor and/or language, and honestly, just the idea that a horror movie is watching women get stabbed, basically. So we were able to glom onto the good stuff of the '80s, films, and kind of lose the stuff that just doesn't age well.
Right. And there's also no wedding singer type jokes where, what? JR just got shot?
Actually, yeah, that's
You
true.
know?
We made a point of that. Like, we didn't want to. It's only set in the '80s, and if you ignore that, like, there's no dialogue that really indicates that it's in the '80s. You just have to watch. And I think, does somebody? Oh yeah, and there's a little thing that says Minnesota 1983.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But like, other than that, you don't ever. It's not a self-aware, like, guys, in the '80s crazy kind of thing, because that just
Yeah.
would have been boring, I think.
There was even like a Reagan joke, I think, in an earlier draft that got cut out, which probably was for the best.
Yeah. And I think there were a couple times when we used like '80s off-color language, just because we thought, well, they would talk that way back then. But I remember you and I were like, nah, we don't have to do
Why?
that.
Yeah.
Why? Exactly. So we didn't. We canceled ourselves, Chris.
Ugh, they're going to be up in arms. Cody, you want to talk about how this became a Chinese restaurant?
What was it? What did we have it as first? I can't even remember what it was in the first draft.
It was a dive
It's
bar.
just a dive bar,
Okay.
right?
Biker
bar,
dive bar, yeah.
Yeah. We it was funny. We were scouting, assuming that we were not going to find the appropriate bar, and we might have to build. And we were over at a studio in Hamilton called Digital Canaries, and they had all of these set pieces, like most of the walls that you see here. They had them kicking around from a TV show that had just shot, and me and Chad begged them and this other production to leave them so that we could use them, because they look so great. So we did a quick swap, and then added a whole bunch of stuff, obviously, to make it pop more. But
I feel like
that was a very happy accident.
Yeah, and it was strange because it was the studio was showing us the space, being like, hey, you could build a set in this space, because we were thinking about building a set for this scene. And as we walked in, they were like, for example, there's a set built right now. We walked in, and it was this kind of Japanese, like it was it was a Netflix show or something like that. And so all these walls were set up, and we kind of walked in and we're like, wow, like, imagine this. And we bring like the neon lights and Jeff Mahar, and work some magic, and that's what it kind of turned into. But yeah, Jeff,
Well,
I think that
scene,
show is The Age of Samurai.
That's correct.
yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what it is.
And
which
do you
is an
remember
awesome
they
show.
had like the full studio was just rammed with all these like corridors and all this stuff, and we were like, oh, that'd be so great if we could have everything. And then I think we came back like 2 weeks later, and there was like 6 walls left.
Oh yeah, they
Man,
demoed so
They
much
had
of it.
demoed everything, and we had to like build our own walls. And I think we had to search down or track down the production and go and pick up some
Yeah.
stuff from them, because they were still shooting.
Yeah, they had gone and taken some of the set walls to go do something else. They were planning on just dumping them somewhere after, so brought them all back in. But yeah, this was an exciting one, just because it was like the look of it when we walked in was just so like, it was so different from the look that it is here, like with all the neons and all the lighting and stuff like that. And Jeff, you did such an awesome job here, like going through the set and just making it give it that kind of like cool 80s feel, but still modern,
Cool. Yeah. I guess it was about blobs of color. Always in every frame, we wanted to see some kind of cool, little highlight, colorful highlight.
And it was like also too, you kept working with Amanda, the production designer, to find like set pieces that you could bury lights in,
Sure.
even if
yeah.
even if you weren't supposed to.
Yeah.
We took a lot of things apart and paid for a lot of things we couldn't put back together.
That's right.
Yeah, and even when we kind of built the set and kind of took a look at it, it was like, there's a corridor down the side that was kind of designed a certain way. Then there was this idea of like the big symbols that are on the wall, of like seeing through them a little bit. So like building walls behind them just to give the place a little bit more depth.
Well, I remember, Jeff, we we had decided that we needed, especially for the a focus point for the circle scene. You and me had discussed that we needed to do something with the walls, and then we did a bunch of sketches and sent them to my dad that actually built those big show symbols.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think we were going to cover them entirely with diffusion codes, but then I think we removed some panels of diffusion, so you'd see yet another hallway
Oh yeah, right.
to give this impression that there was more of this restaurant. Like you can see it there, sort of there's that other layer in the back of that red one.
This scene coming up, I remember you and me, Jeff, had chatted so much about how we wanted to do the sort of the drinking montage, and we watched a bunch of 80s movies and took all these references, and then on the day we just sort of made this up.
The zooms.
we threw out
The zooms.
everything we had planned. We're like, we don't have any time. Can't do any of this cool shit we talked about for 6 months.
I noticed you Dutched the zooms as well. There's a little
Yes.
bit of a rotation. I didn't know you were going to do that. It's cool.
I think it works pretty funny.
You never gave me one of those T-shirts, by the way.
The t-shirts you designed.
I know.
Nobody
they're
got
just
any
like
of those T-shirts.
Yeah, thanks for nothing.
Anytime you see the Vicious Fun magazine, that's a James Villeneuve design. Front and back, the bad computer ad on the back is also by James.
Well, those ads are real. Actually, I just stole them off.
Oh,
the
I
internet.
thought you made that ad up.
No, those ads are real.
Oh, that's funny.
What was I going to say? Hey, that last scene where she kind of burns him and walks away. That's kind of the whole part of the core of what we wanted to do to him was like rip apart a character. In an 80s movie, this guy would get the girl, and a girl would like him, and we decided, screw that. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to make him the sidekick.
Yeah, and shout out to Evan Marsh and Amber Goldfarb, who are our leads there. They came together in casting, and we brought them in to actually audition against each other, and they were just like fantastic right from the top. It's like both of them, they got each other. They had great chemistry, and they were just hilarious from the start.
Well, they got the characters. I think like she knows what she's supposed to be, which is like a bit of a straight man, comedy wise, but in charge, and he knows that he's not supposed to look cool at all. Like Evan was totally fine with looking like a dork for pretty much the whole movie, and that's good, right? Like,
Well, yeah, and they know they all
he-
get their they still get their payoffs. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't have to be the cool guy off the top. He still gets his moment. And it was I
Yeah.
remember we discussed how important it would be to be like, no, play it this way so that when this moment happens and you get your moment, it's just going to be all that more powerful for the audience.
Yeah, but that said, like his moment is about being self-aware. I wouldn't say he ends up being cool. I just say he ends up like becoming a better person. Like
Well, he's
he's
kind
still
of
the
cool
side.
at the end.
He's still the sidekick. Like
Sure.
in
There's
my
cool
mind, I see him
sidekicks
as
out there.
yeah, yeah, sure.
Don't shit on Robin.
I think what sold me on Evan when I saw his audition was the fact that he was improvising in character. He was using
Yeah,
80s horror movie references. I think one of his scenes was the interview scene,
Yeah.
and he was had these little asides he was burning the director with, and I don't know. I feel like James, you and I were just like really loved him.
Oh
right
yeah.
away.
As soon as we saw him, yeah, we were like, that's he's the guy. And then and honestly, it was the same way with Amber. As
Amber,
soon as we
yeah.
saw her, I was like, okay, that she's supposed to be like a bit of like Joan Jett as Sarah Connor kind of thing. I guess was the way I saw her on the page, and she's exactly that in the movie.
Do you remember,
Why?
Chad? We auditioned Evan for the Oak Room, and he made it almost all the way down to the end, but his part went to RJ Mitty. But we were like, oh man, we got to work with that guy. So when this got greenlit, I think he was like one of the first people we reached out to.
Yeah, and that's really like something else about Evan too, and really shows his range because the Oak Room was like a mystery drama, like just the tone was so different, and he was so great at it. Like he did so great at that audition, and the fact that we were doing another movie that was completely different in tone, and he came in and absolutely killed it like this is just shows that he's a very, very talented actor. David Koechner, this was his first day on set. He flew in, I think, in the night before. Then we basically got to this abandoned school that we were built the set in, and did a rehearsal quick, kind of like ran through this whole round table. Everyone got to know each other, and then we dove into a couple of days where, like, what were the page counts goes? They were like 13 pages or something crazy. It was just like this
Yeah, it
whole
was like
group of people.
13 or 14 pages in 3 days.
And this scene's like cut down way down from where it was. I think the original edit was like 2 or 3 times as long as this.
This was the one day that James and I actually came to set, was to see the round table in action, and it was really fun to. I think we actually arrived just as Koechner was doing his side of the scene, and it was really quite a masterclass in watching somebody improvise, especially with the knowledge that you're working with a low budget, you're working with limited time, and he would just like run. He would run his line and then do a variation, and then do a variation, and then do a variation, and then continue, and it was just fascinating to watch.
Well, he also just was amazing. Is he in between takes, he was pushing me to sort of to let him go more improv, but to push the rest of the cast. And this is our first sort of comedy that Black Fawn has done, and it was really David Koechner that sort of pushed us to start thinking outside the box and just letting people go. And after these 3 days with him, it was sort of everybody went off after that, and we started going off book more and more every day, and until it got to like, I feel like the last few days people would do their line once and then do like 3 alternatives. It was pretty It was pretty
Everyone
awesome.
got into it.
Yeah, even the people that were like, no, I can't do, I don't want to do any ad libs, I can't run with it at the end, we're doing it as well. It was pretty cool.
Julian
Thanks to David
Richings. Yeah. And Julian Richings in this scene as well. He's another actor that we've worked with him many times in the past, and just huge fans of his work, and such an amazing human being in general. And whenever everyone was discussing all these serial killers, this idea of Julian Richings going in and like covering himself in paint and becoming a serial killer clown was just like, I would watch that movie. We were all so pumped about the idea. So when we reached out to him and he agreed to it, it was a no-brainer for sure. And also he's so funny and awkward. And he's Fritz for sure.
Just wanted to jump in quick and just say, it was just funny. Scoring this scene took, I don't remember if you remember, Steph, it took forever to find like when we wanted to use music, when we didn't want to, and feels like this one was like a battle to try to find that fine line of what the instruments were, how they came out, when they came out. But in the end, I love this scene.
Yeah, I remember this one because it was we didn't get out of this room for a little while, so it was definitely a push pull, like when are we in, when are we out, like we were ducking in and out. So finding it was it was a challenge for sure, but I'm really happy where we landed.
Totally.
Yeah, Stephen. I mean, when we were in the edit for this, it's like we spent so much time trying to change it and slim things down and try to fit it together like a puzzle so that it didn't lag. Like it's just at that point in the movie where you don't want it to drop too much. And there's a lot of dialogue, and it's great, and kind of how it was all fitting together. But it really was it was the key to kind of making it all work, because we watched it a bunch of times, me and Codes and James and everyone kind of watched it to kind of critique it and figure out how we can make this the strongest thing possible. And then once we were like, okay, I mean, I think it's good. Then when you came in, Steph, and kind of like hit the beats that needed to hit and bring the tones in when you needed to, it was like finally at that point we were like, okay, now it's working.
Yeah, it was also a chance to first give everybody their themes too, just a little bit, like just little hints of their themes, like Fritz the clown and Mike with the with his axe, and hit all those stings. That was a lot of fun.
And Mike, Robert Maillet, who is a gentle giant, we've worked with him in the past as well. He's just absolutely massive. Like I had to pick him up most days in my truck because it's the only vehicle he would really fit in, you know. And he just has so many amazing stories. His life's like just, you know, he's just done so many things. He was also in, you know, 300 and Sherlock Holmes, and you know, he's been around the block for sure. And when all said and done, again, he's such a nice guy, and he's just so caring and thoughtful, and you know, completely different than the characters that he always plays, which is you know, always so interesting.
He knew Andre the Giant. I'm just going to say that right now. I found that out on set. That's my only comment. I have nothing else to say about that.
Yeah, he has like size 21 shoes or something like that, 21 or 23 or something like that. He wears like his custom made wrestling boots to set, like as his character, because they were just like so hard for him to find shoes to fit his feet.
You know, one thing that like people sitting and talking can oftentimes be poison for a movie. And I think for a scene like this to work, the reason you can sit here and not be bored is because, I mean, it's a secret to most scenes in movies is that one character knows something that the others don't. And so that creates an underlying tension. I think Chris and I, when we were writing this scene on the page wide count was like twice as long. And we can't, like, there was too much dialogue. And then when we cut it down, I don't know, we kind of came, like, we realized it was the same scene, even though we had cut the page count down by half. And that's just because he's in a situation and the viewer knows and they don't, and that's enough. You don't need to have people blab on.
Well, even from the script after we shot it, it was like, you know, I think the first and second edit, because I didn't want to, it was one of the scenes that I would refuse to cut anything out of. I think, James, you did an edit of it, and then Mike, our editor, took a swing at it or whatever, and it was almost 3 times as long until like the final edit when we finally trimmed it down again. But again, it's
right.
like finding the same scene again and again and again. It still has the heart that it had at the beginning, but yeah, it's a great scene.
Yeah, there were so many goodies in it, because it was like right now you get introduced to the characters and you get like one little tidbit about them. Before it was like 2 little tidbits about each one. And they're all just so juicy and fun to kind of meet these characters. But, you know, it's also, we realize that there's just a point where it's like, all right, well, we're just, you know, we get to know them more as we watch the movie. Let's not just give everything away right now. Slim it down. Let's keep the movie going and go from there.
And the whole idea of this is, again, it's film criticism shit on the internet, basically, you know, being more metamorphosed. You know, we basically just shoved it into this scene, but basically he is a guy on the internet just thinking how smart he is. But there's no internet in the 80s, so he's at a serial killer self-help group instead.
And it's great to see like his confidence arc through this scene too. You know, he's just terrified. He's so terrified as he's realizing that these are all serial killers. And that moment when he realizes he's got to come up with something, and he pitches this idea that he just thinks is the greatest thing ever. It's like you can see his confidence shift, and he's like, yes. And it's like, real serial killers are liking my story. That means I'm right the whole time, right? It's like,
it's unearned confidence, right? Like
which is great, because as soon as Bob comes in, he gets to completely shatter him.
There's some very funny like ADR and additional dialogue that I noticed when we watched it in the theater recently.
Yeah, all of that stuff you miss until you actually see it in the theater, and it was subtitled too, which also probably helped.
Any Shudder listeners or Blu-ray listeners listening with headphones are going to get a lot of fun stuff in the background.
Well, everybody who came in for ADR, I got them to just riff on certain things, and we had this folder of just background stuff. So almost every scene has background comments in it. A lot from Ari, from Bob.
This looks like Argento movie.
Yeah.
I'm worried that Ari pulled a muscle in the scene. He goes so 80s so hard right here in that doorway. I'm surprised he didn't injure himself. It's amazing.
That was the fun thing about every time somebody gets like an entrance moment or a good line or whatever, is figuring out some sort of funny camera thing to do that makes it even more cheesy.
Oh, shout out to Steph for that music. Well, when the door opens, it's awesome. It's perfect for that douchey dude.
Yeah, we should chat about Ari a little bit too. Ari is a good
His hair.
friend, and his hair.
There's so much to talk about with Ari.
The hair took so long.
Yeah, and we've done a couple films with Ari now, and have known him forever. Codes, you go way back with him. But
Yeah, we grew up together.
yeah, and on top of that, it's like, he still comes out and I mean, we often write stuff with him in mind, but also, it's never we're casting Ari because he's our bud and he's, Ari. It's always because he brings so much to the characters that he plays. He's so dynamic and he's just, the best person for the role. And even this, it's like comedy's not even his forte, like doing something like this is very different than a lot of the stuff that he's done in the past. But,
Well, I really didn't originally envision him as being this douchey 80s dude, because he doesn't read that way at all. If you meet him, if you know him, if you know his previous work. And I remember, Cody, when you told me that he really wanted to play this, I was surprised. And I was intrigued. I mean, he even messaged me, I think, on like Twitter or something, because we worked together, and he'd read the script and really loved it and really wanted to play Bob. And I just love the transformation that he made. It's so, I mean, he really does seem like, an asshole out of a early 80s teen comedy.
Totally.
Yeah, like he'd be a villain in Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, he's the guy.
100%.
He's the guy who's in his late 20s who's dating the high school girl.
Yes, that's perfect, actually. But you know what? I honestly, when I didn't know that he had dyed his hair and we got on a set and his hair was like that, I was so excited because it was so perfect. It was exactly right.
Well, I remember when we did all the wardrobe fittings, and I was like, it's good. Like his wardrobe was perfect, but I was like, I kind of feel like we should do a haircut, like a nice 80s haircut, and I think we have to dye it blonde. And his immediate reaction was no. Like, don't make me dye my. Yeah, he was like, I don't want to dye my hair, man. I'm like, no, trust me. It's like, and then as soon as he did it, like, I went to the salon with him while he went through the process or whatever, and we actually paid like all this money to have it done professionally, and it just wasn't blonde enough.
yeah, like it was red.
So I made him do those like at-home kits, and I think he did 2 of them.
Wow.
But when he was done, it was like that was the sort of the last final piece for him to really get into character.
It put him in the hospital for 2 weeks, but it was well worth it.
He's bald now and he doesnon have any hair, but it was worth it.
Yeah. I think I told him on set he looked like young Marlon Brando when he played a Nazi. He was like he was fine with that. That's some good bad guy energy.
I remember, Jeff, when we were blocking out these scenes and stuff, we had spent so much time in that circle. I remember it was you and me that were like, man, we should try and get this whole showdown fight scene in the hallway somehow.
Yeah.
Just because I think we got, after sitting in that room for 4 days around the circle, we got bored of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It works better because he
so much
feels
better.
more
So
trapped.
claustrophobic.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Yeah.
So that was actually more of a game time decision for you guys that you.
It was like
came
the
up
night
over the
before.
course- Right.
We came in the morning and I was walking around with Jeff and we were like, it's just, how do we like circle everybody around them so it looks good, and where are we going to put the camera? And then we just made a decision, man, if we jam everybody in the hallway, it's going to be perfect. And there's just nowhere for him to go. And then his escape is absurd. It made it a lot more funny. He just crawls away.
Yeah, and then you can have this kind of visual tableau of all the serial killer standing there, you know?
And David Keckner is a tall man. So
Yeah.
He's not a small guy.
he's not a small guy. So, geez, like, yeah. So
Probably the second tallest guy in the group.
Yeah, like I think he's like 6'3" or something like that.
Yeah.
He's
Just shows you like.
No,
and-
he's
and
like
Ri-
6'7" because I'm 6'2" and I was having to look way up at him.
wow.
he was wearing cowboy boots, I think, also.
That does a lot.
Yeah, he came in with a cowboy hat and cowboy boots, and was like, "I'm from Hollywood. What's going on?" But he was great. The moment he walked in, he just like zipped around the room, said hi to every single person on set. It was he came in like a wrecking ball. It's awesome.
James, tell the story of when we met him.
Oh, yeah. It was when we were on set. There was a little break, and I went up, just saying hi to a couple people. And I went up to him, just say, "Hey, I'm James. I'm the writer. Thanks for coming out," or whatever. And you guys were in between scenes that he was shooting, and so
And
he
improvising
looked at me,
his ass off.
yeah, improvising that, and he looked, "Oh, I apologize."
That was the extent of it.
Yeah.
Did he like having all the guts pouring out and the needle in his eye?
I feel like it was sort of like the day was done and we were rushing to get all that before he could leave and go to his hotel. So I don't know. He was a trooper, obviously, but all that stuff always takes longer, and especially it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's just going to be a little bit of blood and a little bit of intestines, and then you get going, and we're pouring guts all over him.
All of a sudden, he's lying on a cold floor.
Yeah.
Like blood everywhere and sticky, and
Abandoned high school.
and we got to get him out of there too because it was. I think he had to
He
fly
had to
to
get to an
Kansas
airport.
City.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, 'cause-
remember when everyone kept asking, "Is it okay if we put a bit more blood?" And he's like, "Just get all the blood on me and let's get it done."
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
remember we poured so much on him, and he laid down for so long. When he got up, he pulled up the floor with him,
Yeah.
and it had put like a big patch that we had to fix. We had to actually fix some of that in post too, just because there was this giant hole. It stuck him to the ground. He's still there.
Yeah,
Hey,
he's a big Kansas City Chiefs fan. So he was actually going home, and I think he was beating the drums to start the Kansas City game in their stadium that weekend. So it was like he had to go. It was a big deal that he needed to get home. I think it was Thanksgiving weekend down there too. So
Hey, do you remember, Chris, that when we first were trying to break the back of the screenplay, we didn't know that we would have access to a hospital set and a police set, and we thought the entire movie had to be in this restaurant, and how we hated that, and it was so hard.
You
I do
hated that from the
remember that.
beginning when I gave
do
you the
remember that,
treatment.
Jim. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was the discussions we had early on where Green Room was a real point of comparison about getting them in this claustrophobic environment and having the sort of siege vibe going on, but we knew that at a certain point we had to get them out of there, and that was back when it was attached to
A
this
hotel.
dive bar that was attached to a hotel, so sort of this
Yeah.
like Key Largo-ish sort of locale. Abandoned hotel, and they were going to get into the hotel and run around, and it just seemed kind of lame, and it seemed like the tension was going to be depleted. So yeah, the idea of being able to put them into the police station and put them into the hospital was like the sort of shell game of constantly putting them in these environments that they had to get out of and run around in. But I mean, the story behind that is pretty great. If you want to share share that.
Of how
what-
we got there.
Well, because James and I were we were a little bit.
Well, I remember
Oh.
we were working on at that point we were working on the script, and as you said, that it had this sort of hotel showdown it was good. It just, I think we all kind of felt like something wasn't working about it, and then we were shooting another movie called I'll Take Your Dead, and we were in this, well, not this studio that's on screen, but in one of their other studios at Digital Canaries, and I was walking around and I was like, oh, there's a cop shop here. Oh, there's a hospital here. And I remember I sent you guys photos and said, well, we can get these locations. What if we just use these?
And then we were on board. Oh, hey, you know what? That was a fascinating story, everyone. But I want to hear from Steph about making this music. Is it like
Oh,
an
I didn't
80s?
make that music.
No, you didn't.
Thwarted.
So what is
That's
this?
Sextile. What is the name?
Yeah, that's disco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would yeah? I just want to know about why this particular. Like, did you play this on set, or was it something you chose after the fact? What was the deal here with? Because I honestly I don't even remember writing a dance scene.
Because you didn't remember,
I didn't, right.
I asked you guys to do it, and I think Smets, you might have been on board, but James, you were like, "No, we're not doing a dance scene." And then I get for me, you put a line in like his feet dance across the floor to the group or something, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm shooting it."
Well,
no,
technically
this song
his
was,
feet. Yeah.
Yeah, this song was from a label that I had reached out to because they kind of repped a bunch of new wave 80s sounding bands, and this was just one of the songs that me and Ari had actually found, and he really liked it and thought he could do something weird to it. So there you have it.
And it was really like we had it pounding through the studio for him to do this dancing because he was a little nervous about it. You know, it's like dancing isn't his forte, but it was awesome. I mean, he went on, I think he did like the whole 3-minute song, and it was like massive applause from the entire like crew afterwards. Like everyone just loved watching him kind of go through this whole process. And again, even the dance scene was much longer in the original edit, and it was so hard cutting it down because there was just so many great moments of it. You did such a good job.
James and Chris, do you guys remember the original idea for this scene was that they were all going to go out to their respective cars?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And we were so excited about it. And then, obviously we ran out of money and couldn't find the cars. So we had switched it all to these, which I actually, in the end, I'm not sure what I actually like better.
It was a funny idea because I think your plan was that every character would have a car that sort of cartoonishly matched them.
Yeah.
I think like Julian had like a little European compact or something, and
Mike had the white van, and
and then we had the sports car obviously for Ari. And
I think the idea was it'd be cool to have them like they brought their superhero outfits with them.
Yeah.
The basic idea.
I actually want to say one of the great things about this movie is the fact that all these characters have such distinct looks. There's nobody here that you couldn't dress up as for Halloween, and you could do like a very simple, like a kid could do a drawing of any of these characters and you'd know who it was. It's almost like a sort of like Peanut style, costume character design. It's a little bit heightened.
Yeah. You know what? I was really excited when we got to set because I knew who everyone was just like from far away. we didn't write their clothing description really. I mean, we just kind of
carry a little bit. That was probably the
knew,
only person. Everybody else
Yeah.
was left open. But I mean, I knew what they were going to look like from the day when I think I shared some of the boards that I had made with you guys. They're all very specific, obviously. But that was, as you were saying, Chris, that was sort of the idea is all the killers needed to look like they should have figurines made after them.
Is that happening? Is Todd McFarlane going to
He's
a
in.
Vicious Fun line? Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, shout out to Sean as well, who plays Miku,
that's great.
or who plays
Hideo.
Yeah, and it's he did such a great job. He was another guy who he's worked with Breakthrough Entertainment, kind of our partner studio on this film, and had done some great work with them as well in Blood and Water. But just a gentleman, just awesome, talented, great to work with, and really embrace the role too.
Yeah, but beyond everybody's obvious talent as actors, everybody was so awesome. Like this was definitely one of the most fun sets to be on.
What is going on? What is your plan here?
Well, first I'm gonna have to kill you.
You guys are practical effects lovers, I guess, obviously, and it's always better to see practical effects than anything that looks juiced up digitally, even though you can juice things up digitally and it doesn't look that way, but you got to start with the practical effects. It's more fun.
especially for this.
Yeah.
It would have hurt, I think, if we went digital or for VFX for any of the kills and stuff.
Yeah, it's still embracing the 80s and filmmaking genre films in the 80s. It's like practical effects were the way to go.
Did the practical effects ever affect, shooting time on set, slow things down?
Oh yeah.
Always.
But
Yeah.
again, it's like it slows it down. But then when you get it, everybody knows you got it. The actor knows you got it. Jeff's pumped. Everybody, Sean Hunter, our VFX or gore effects guru. Everybody, when you get it, it's like there's not a better feeling because nobody's going, oh, we're gonna later we're gonna add this, and everybody's kind of like, oh, okay.
Well, that CGI blood never looks good.
No.
And that's the challenge. Anytime you do practical effects, it's like it could just work, no problem, or it could just be a nightmare of cleaning up messes because it's like after you do it once, you got to clean up everything, reset, takes forever, do it again. So I mean, they're huge victories for sure, especially everyone trying to make their days. It's like when you get it and you got it, it's huge.
I mean, even just when we were shooting that stuff for the fake movie, and we were, we did that blood gag where the blood just hit our actress Mackenzie in the face. It was so much fun. We felt like little kids messing around doing that.
I remember I had to. We had shot that night, so everyone went home and went to sleep, and I think I slept a couple hours, whatever, and came back to set. And I was just working in the office while you guys were filming that. And it was just like, I think it was just the three of you. And it's just like howling coming from the hallway. Just as you guys were like screwing around, trying to get blood work in. And it was, you could hear you were having a good time.
Well, it's like this. Can we do this? Can we get blood all over the wall?
The answer was no. But,
Right.
Little paint job later and it was all better.
That's what I like to hear.
Actually, I do remember we had a mini argument in the hallway about that. And we were like, well, nobody's going to watch the film and go, glad they kept those walls clean. So then we just did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I came to just be there in case you guys needed anything. And I had to, sign the paperwork and get everything ready for the actress. But I remember walking out and being like, man, what a mess. Just Carrie being badass.
I think, well, Chris and I have talked about this. I think we talked about it at the screening, that this is like Big Trouble in Little China. He's Kurt Russell's ridiculous character, and she's actually, his buddy who does all the martial arts fighting and flipping around and, really knows what's going on.
Yeah, it's her movie. In a lot of ways. And isn't she actually a stunt person? She has some stunt training.
Oh yeah, pretty extensive. She does a lot of somebody else will correct me on this. The suits that you put on for video games.
Yes.
She does a lot of those. Yeah,
Motion capture. Yeah.
So she does a lot of that. So she does all her own stunts and stuff for that. So, and a lot of even like her moments, like this scene. Obviously, it was written that way, and we did a choreography. But she would always add to all of her stuff, which is awesome because it made it all that much more authentic.
Well, we'll get to this later, but I remember James and I were there the day that she and Robert Maillet, this was still when you were shooting The Circle, were rehearsing the idea of them doing like a big climactic fight at the police station.
Oh, yeah.
So it should be more of a,
Oh yeah.
Well, before it was in the script, it's like she just pops out of nowhere and kills him.
Yeah.
And we were like, wow.
Way better the way it is.
We need a moment. So that was fun doing all that choreography stuff.
And they both obviously, I mean, with him his wrestling background and her with her stunt background, like it's perfect marriage.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my God, he's so funny.
That was a moment where Ari's wouldn't we didn't talk about that phone call, but he was like, I got this, I'm gonna do this thing. And he had listened to all of these like 911 calls and sort of interpreted those the way Bob would and I don't know. I always was surprised at where he went with that. But again, it's like his character seems to always push the envelope, but somehow it just works in this movie.
Making this easy, Joel. Now we gotta deal with 3 psychopaths in their house. Well, at least cops are easier to deal with than serial killers, relatively speaking.
Oh, this is where Chris and I took a big writerly dump on the, the trope of like a lot of the creepy stuff that men do in 80s and 90s romance movies that are actually stalkerish things, but in the movies, for some reason, they're cute. Whereas this is where we start to burn them for it, I think, somewhere in the scene.
Yeah, the first of 2 scenes between them.
Yeah.
3 down. 3.5 with the weird clown guy's hand and the host.
And the funny thing about this scene, I think somebody brought up, is like, why don't they just leave at this point? They're stuck though in the kitchen, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The back is chained up and
right. And
they
the
can't
front
get out the front door, yeah.
door screwed up, right?
If it was a Western, somebody would have set the cabin on fire by now.
It's just a nice little palate cleanser before you get to the police station. And I just nice to have this sort of character building scene between these actors, and they're just so nice together.
Well, it goes off in such a different direction right after this too. Sort of like one part of the movie ends and another part starts.
Yeah, it's like Vicious Fun Part 2 follows immediately. Even the color scheme switches.
I thought he was married, so
Yeah, it gets very Carpenter in the
It's
police
very
station.
brown. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's hard to find a logic reason to stick a bunch of neon lights in a police station.
police station. Yeah, can't
No,
be
but-
Bud Light
but
sign
we-
in the window. And
Yeah. We also
No, but it
wanted to try to
works.
reference more things.
Yeah, no, it works. It looks like the police station in any number of 80s movies that I like the Terminator or whatever.
that was a big touch point for us. when
Assaults
we
on
talked
Precinct
about,
13.
Yeah,
If only we could speak to the DOP about that and find out what he had in mind. Hi, Jeff.
Hey. Are we talking about the police station?
yes.
Yeah.
I think we were just trying to light it with fluorescence, right? Codes. That was sort of the inspiration.
Yeah.
You guys also had the idea of at one point knocking the power out so that we could have those emergency lights on and change the
Right.
whole feel of it again, right?
Yeah, I think, and then we kind of were motivated by sort of the sodium vapor lights from the 80s and 90s, that kind of amber orange look coming through the windows.
Shout out to my nephew Mitchell Boyce, who lent us this car, Bob's car. It's Z24, I think 1981 Camaro that he it was his father's, and he lent it to us to give to Bob to be his serial killer vehicle, and it was great. We had car troubles. I think there's one scene at the start when Bob's driving away from Joel's house, where we have car sounds in it, but we were actually there was 5 people pushing the car behind for the car to drive out of the shot because, of course, it wouldn't start.
Ashley, go.
can I just please get my phone call? We can come right back to this if I can have my phone call, please. No, I just want to reiterate.
This is really where a lot of the ad libbing came in. It was these two had so much fun doing this scene. There's so many great bloopers from it and such a longer extended version of it too.
And it was every time we tell Christopher Bowman, and oh, give us something different, he would just go off.
Yeah.
There was one take of this that I think we kept the camera rolling for 15 minutes, and they both just went. Again, it didn't suit the pacing of the movie, but holy shit, it's funny.
I think he approached me on set when he found out I was the writer, and he was just like really excited to one of the writers because he was really excited to talk to me, just to say, oh, when I was doing the audition, I wanted it so bad. I usually don't want roles very bad, but this one I was like so excited. Like they were pumped. They were pumped to be there. Like the way he was talking about, like normally I don't get nervous about auditions because you know you got to have a thick skin, but he was like, I was really, really, really hoping to get it, just because he wanted to be this dude, this ridiculous mustachioed policeman.
And this
Yeah.
is Mark Gibson
Mark
here. Is
Gibson.
another actor that we've worked with and good friend that been around for a long time, and you know, it's awesome to have this opportunity to have him in the film.
Well, it's the trio of guys with John Frey as Tony, and just the three of them together they're all just perfect.
Were these all their real mustaches?
Yep.
Great. Who was that your idea to have them all with mustaches?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of felt like it had to be.
This is the point in the film where a lot of people have pointed out that it becomes like Super Troopers all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are just amazing, bouncing off one another.
I think Chris, you and I were also bouncing against the tropes, like the heroic police trope. You know, like in a lot of the 80s films, it's either corrupt cop or it's like superhero hero cop. Even if they don't make it to the end of the movie, they tried. But we just didn't do either of those things just because they've been done. So, so
Well,
I'm
they're-
glad these guys embraced it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because they're kind of on the page. They're almost more like the classic cops in like The Blob or Gremlins, where people run to the police station. There's something terrible going on, and the cops don't believe them. But I feel like you know, I think some of the stuff we wrote, and then with obviously Cody directing them to improvise, they really elevated it from that to this other level, which is hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, again,
I
they
have a-
they almost find their way of being unique again, where they feel like they almost need bobbleheads of them. Like you'd have all the serial killers, but you'd also have cops as a figurines.
Oh, absolutely. Like they think they're the hero cops in an 80s movie,
Oh yeah,
and they're
totally.
just like,
I have a question. Am I allowed to ask questions? I have a question for Jeff again. Like, how much of this lighting looks so practical? I mean, how much was set and forget, and how much did you sort of sculpt the actors?
I mean, I'd say maybe 60% was all those bulbs that you see in the ceiling. We just replaced them with sort of, you know, matching fluorescence. And we kind of just turned them on and off to create, you know, different areas of exposure, just because we had to move so quick. And then when we get into close-ups, we just sort of augment it with a little bit of bounce or another small fixture, you know?
But it was like a minimalist setup, I guess, right? Once you had everything going, it was just, yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
You were probably able to zoom through a lot of this stuff. I mean, your crew, I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I don't think you can really see it, but I think there was actually a skylight in the middle of this room as well, wasn't there, Jeff?
Yeah, there is, and we got a light sort of buried up in there. Once in a while, you can see the wire that's feeding it, sort of going along the ceiling.
Hey, tell me this man's name again, John
Frey.
John Frey. Yeah, when Chris and I saw John Frey's audition tape, much like I'm sure you guys, it was like sold. He was perfect from the very get-go.
He was one of the first people cast
well, that horror
he-
monologue.
because he was so fucking good.
Yeah, he got what his character is supposed to be. This so perfectly.
We've talked so many times about like a spin-off of just John Frey's character.
Yeah.
Just like his own movie. Like I would just want to see where that guy went, like
Yeah.
how he got into this scene right here.
I think
it should,
yeah.
he should have a Band-Aid on his forehead, and it should be after this movie. Somehow he survived.
I would just say if there's a movie that takes place now, just have him playing his son and don't explain it. Have him just play it exactly the same way.
He's a really good dancer too.
That's true.
At
I didn't expect that.
the rap party, he destroyed the dance floor.
Yeah.
I did not
Exactly.
expect to hear that.
I love the way the her apartment looks in this.
Yeah, this was a great set.
And we've used that set a couple times for a couple different films as well. It's just
Oh, really?
Yeah.
shout out to the art department who can kind of recreate the same space and just make it look different and feel like a whole different era.
Yeah, and they did that great two-tone on the wall, which was pretty sort of 70s, 80s inspired.
I love the Beetlejuice bathroom tile.
Hey, have I told you how nice of a mustache you had? If I could grow one, I would grow one just like yours. I'm just gonna make a real quick. No, can't do that. It's called one phone call. It is so.
I feel like he's a car salesman in Fargo.
Yeah. It's a lot of
good
Fargo
one.
references for his performance.
Yeah.
Then come back for her. Okey-doke.
And you wrote his monologue too, Codes, for his audition piece.
Yeah, well, we didn't have I mean, he had some great one-liners here and there in the script, but he never had a moment. So I had to quickly write something, and I think you saw it, and you were like, "Dude, we got to put this in the movie."
Yeah, I was like, who wrote this? This is good.
And then you did like a little polish, but it's pretty much the gist of what it was.
I love that he never actually gets his gun out there.
I think if you watch the deleted scenes, there's a moment where he drops it and he picks it up and he has this weird. It's hilarious. Watch it. It's great.
Oh yeah, he drops it. He's like, "We really got to get these gun holsters fixed."
Ooh, golly. You really nailed you, eh?
Yeah, I think even this one, there was photos of a set that Cody looked at before that was like, this, we've got a jail set too, we can have them in jail or whatever. And then right before we shot the movie, they had torn this jail set down. And we were like, oh no, what are we going to do? And I think we were lucky enough, they rebuilt this whole new set that just like, without us even asking, it just happened, like the stars aligned and we got the set again. So it was close.
I think that studio gets a lot of recreation, like shows, about heists or whatever. I directed a bit of a show like that at that studio once, and yeah, it really is. I think it's in their wheelhouse to just have stuff standing there. I think they have a Oval Office set there. It's one of the only standing Oval Office sets in North America.
Well, if
I
I'm
think.
not mistaken, I think isn't this all gone?
Yeah, this is all gone now.
Yeah, it's all gone
This
now.
whole studio is actually gone.
Oh,
Where did
really?
they go?
They moved it. A lot's changed since pandemic started. So, but they're growing, and I mean they have so many spots now. We've been meaning to go in to look at some of our new films to see what they have, but it's always evolving. That's something that Digital Canaries is always it's always really cool about them. Is like every time you go into these studios, there's just something new. There's something that's changed.
Was the car moving there under its own power?
It was.
Okay.
That one was real.
And was that real rain or was that a guy with a hose off camera?
Real rain.
Real rain.
Wow.
Yeah, to get that shot, we actually waited like 6 weeks. It's a key
In the
moment.
same spot.
No wonder the budget went over.
Yep.
Yeah.
The rain shot.
That's right. Actors waiting around while you sit outside with Jeff.
By now he's probably dead or somebody had already killed her. I don't know, maybe he's still out there.
Her lock picking skills, they're slow, but she gets the job done eventually. She's got time for the monologue and to pick a lock.
It's all timing.
Remember you and I debated this, James, whether or not she should do the classic steal the pen, pick the lock routine. I think finally, we're like, you know what? It's just been. You need to just get from this scene to the next scene. Let's just do it.
I don't remember having an issue with that. I think what I remember having an issue with was, should we do monologues there? I think that was more my, but it kind of fits with the style of movie, I guess.
It kind of works for her character too. She does it so casually that it almost feels like, oh, she's been in jail a couple times. She's not concerned. She knows how to get out of here.
Yeah.
Another great scene with Ari. A lot of and the cops. Like, I mean, there's a lot of improv in the scene too that are just really, really great jokes.
Yeah,
Well, this was the last day of
write it.
shooting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like all of that mustache stuff just happened. We
This is
never
a
talked
very-
about it.
This is a very what is it? Michael Caine in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels scene where you know that he knows, but they don't know.
Oh, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
He's even got the mustache.
yeah.
I can hear what he's saying to you, and everything is perfect. You're absolutely right,
I mean, God, some of
Yeah,
his
like
lines
all
are
this
so
was just
cool.
improv.
This just happened, yeah.
It was perfect.
Well, I think on the first take they did that. We yelled cut, and they were sorry that just happened, and I was like, no, we got to do that again. Let's keep doing that.
It's
And it got
good.
more and
yeah.
more ridiculous every time we did it until I think that was like the third take.
Yeah.
So good.
It's good improv from the other dude who holds him back instead of just
Oh,
joining
yeah, yeah.
in, right? Like
Yeah,
he
yeah,
decided, no, I'm the voice of reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And Amber's just such a great straight woman. She really grounds it. 'Cause I think if she was doing shtick, you know,
No, it
I
wouldn't.
think
At
there
that
was-
point, it
there
would fall
was some
apart.
shtick in the script. There was a few
With
things
her?
that that where she has like a few kind of like one-liner jokes and stuff that we did, but you know, even Amber was like, it just doesn't feel like a Carrie thing to do, to jump on the bandwagon. But yeah, there was
Chris
a
wrote-
few of them.
Chris
Yeah,
wrote those.
blame-
Chris
blame
wrote all
me.
those.
Mhm, yeah. I mean, that's always the mark of a good actor for me, when they want to cut lines, when they want to say less.
Oh, jeez.
So funny.
I think that's the last shot, Codes, right? This close up of Ari.
Of the
Yeah.
movie? Yeah,
Yeah,
that we
close up,
shot?
yeah.
Yeah.
And we only had the one angle.
Yeah. Because I think everybody else was rapping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
We're like, oh, let's get 2 cameras on this. It's like, oh, we've already packed it up. Oh.
This scene contains, I think, my favorite improv in the movie.
Oh yeah.
We'll get there in a minute.
Yeah.
This whole scene, this was fun
I
to
think
write.
this was everybody's favorite improv.
This
the
is
board.
actually in the blooper reel. There's actually there's a bunch more takes from this scene. A bunch of the improvs in it, so it's good.
Once again, humiliating Joel.
So easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just every time I hear that, it just cracks me up.
Yeah.
So what else do we have in here? Huh? Oh, just knives and it's a pretty grim box. I gotta tell you.
I feel like everything he says in this scene is just off book.
It's just
Yeah.
gold.
I feel
Yeah.
like he
There's
just
so
he just rants.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So much improv in here.
But it's fun because it helps to bury these little plot points too.
Yeah.
Finding her book, and
Totally.
you know, doing away with the tape recorder, and you know, the tape recorder is actually a nice little red herring, because you think that's going to reveal something, and then you kind of forgot about her book at that point.
There's the magazine cover, Chris. So the back of it is real. It's a genuine ad from the
I thought you
80s.
made that up. I thought you
No, I
right.
went in and I took out the trademark names. Don't get me wrong.
Uh-huh.
Nobody can be sued for it, but
Sure. That's funny.
I think it's like Schmanasonic or Shmoni instead of whatever it was. But I think it was either stock footage or Black Fawn references on both of those magazine covers.
100%.
I
Same with
think
the
it was
movie
like a little
posters,
bit
too.
of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Tony Jr.
It's funny though, we
Yeah.
had decided that out of the cops, the other 2 are complete idiots, but he would have actually been like a hero cop, but he never gets there.
No, because he's got his nose buried in that nerdy magazine.
Egos. He's got his ego under control, you know.
Incidentally, for people out there who think that I based that magazine cover on Fangoria, it's wrong. I did it on Starlog. I was a Starlog guy, not Fangoria. I mean, I like Fangoria. I'm just saying, I had a Starlog subscription.
I thought you were going to avoid being sued there, but you're not.
No,
I love this little shot you added, Cody. The idea of the little clown.
Felt
on
like he
the-
needed a little gimmick.
got the Carpenter music stings going on there. I like it.
So good.
Steph, what were some of the musical references that you and Cody talked about with regard to scoring? This section of the film.
This section was definitely like laying into the campy 80s horror stings of like Halloween and Carpenter based synthesizer string stings and maybe some like cheesy piano rolls. But still scary. We weren't keeping it we were
Like you weren't doing a parody of the music. You were just sort of like making music in that neighborhood, I guess.
Yeah, I think just the instrument choice made it a little more of a wink, but we were still trying to be scary and upsetting.
I love how Julian looks in this too. Like he just looks so menacing and upsetting.
I think he's okay, guys. Don't worry. He'll be
He's
okay.
gonna make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's gonna make
Band-Aid.
it. It's not that deep.
Yeah, what part of the brain is that? I mean, come on, it could just paralyze him.
Yeah. That was actually it's funny when you read some of the internet reviews, some people will be like, oh, the kills are all fantastic, and then other people are like, oh, the kills are so not fantastic. I guess movie kills are a really personal thing for horror viewers.
Yeah. It's a real Rorschach test for horror fans.
Yep.
The only way you are not finishing that bottle with us tonight is if you drop dead. Hope not. The only thing my stepdaughter Sharon has in the world.
I mean,
It's the line.
Oh, it's so
That's the
good.
line. It's so good.
So good.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of this actually came from like there was a continuity issue that we had where he had to move that bottle from something that we had shot before. And it was like in kind of correcting this little continuity issue, this scene kind of evolved a little bit and he just started ad-libbing lines. So again, in the blooper reel, it's like there's a bunch of his other lines that he was dropping there and they're all great.
Oh, I love the conceit that the cops and the serial killers behave like teenagers in any other slasher movie, wandering off alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And
talking to themselves.
Yeah, muttering prophetic dialogue. I'll be back in a minute.
And we talked about that at the screening in Toronto, Chris, that we at one point had, the roommate's friends there and we were going to do classic slasher things in the dark police station. And we were both like, why do we have to kill a bunch of women? Let's kill the cops instead. So we did. It's like, again, it's a film that feels like it's made then, but it's kind of more made for us now. I feel
it's a little subversive in that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's actually one of the only times we added blood in VFX in post.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there just wasn't enough coming out.
You can't tell.
Didn't work on the day, so we did it in post.
This was also something that James and I talked about because we knew we wanted Bob to kill this cop. But we were like, but he's going to get blood all over himself. And I feel like that's something that...
Yeah, like he wouldn't, he's too vain. He wouldn't want blood on his beautiful suit that that he paid a lot of money for.
You cooked up this idea of the raincoat.
Yeah. Because he's thinking about his looks as much as he's thinking about getting the kill done.
Yeah. Is there like a little freeze frame there at the end when he stabs him with the pencils?
No, I think it's because it's in reverse.
Oh, I see. Oh, it looks like the Little Rascals gag for a second.
But a scary one.
The scary
This
Little
shot
Rascals.
here, Cody. Remember we killed Mark in another movie, and I think in a similar way. Wasn't he
I like
a
to
Oh
cop?
yeah, and Helmut
In Hellmouth, he was a cop and
Mhm.
with a mustache.
with a mustache lying on a desk in blood.
Jesus Christ! Do not sneak up on people like that. Did I scare you? Where's Mike? We need to wrap things up.
I just love that he's right there all of a sudden.
You two need to cool it.
So absurd.
Man, this must be a really cavernous, maze-like police station.
I did find out some very interesting.
Oh, so this is our Utah reference,
Yes.
right? We talked about. I think we told you the idea of never really talking about Utah, but talking about Utah as if it's scary.
And what do you guys think actually happened in Utah?
Carrie killed a bunch of people in the circle.
Yeah, it's the
That's
same. It's another
Yeah.
spot she's been for another meeting where she wiped everybody out.
Yep. But nobody knew because they were all dead. But they just knew Utah was a disaster.
And they knew there was someone.
Yeah.
Someone took them all out. There's someone who's hunting them.
And now he knows that she's responsible for Utah.
Some people miss that entire through line. I've noticed in reviews.
Oh, really? Yeah, I haven't seen it referenced very often, but I mean, who knows if people are
I've been
getting
asked
it
that a
or not.
lot. Like, what was the Utah thing?
Huh.
Well, it's funny because Chris and I when we put Utah in the circle conversation, we thought it'd be funny if nobody actually referenced what happened. But then we ended up using it later in the screenplay because it just felt like a good thing to do. But we purposefully kind of kept it on the down low, I guess. We just thought it'd be funny. Make it feel
Yeah.
like the world is bigger.
I felt like it was nice to bring it back in that moment when he finds the
Yeah.
book and to give him a little bit more of a reason to, it makes it more personal for Bob to want to kill Carrie at that
Yeah.
point. All his suspicions are confirmed.
I think this scene was actually one of the first scenes that we shot outside of the bar scene, like outside of the Chinese food place. This little push in on Carrie.
Nice.
And this, I guess, was the kind of the joke also. Now the killers are the teenagers wandering around
Yep.
alone. They didn't stay in a group. So role reversal, everyone.
The Shuck got a big laugh in the screening we all went to.
Oh, did it? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it is a little.
It's so cheesy. It's
It's
awesome.
cool but absurd.
Yeah.
And this
I
was-
remember me and Jeff were trying to decide if we were actually going to do that kind of shot because it's so cheesy, but we're like, oh, let's just do it. We're here now. Let's go.
Now, Cody, do you remember originally the idea was that he goes into this evidence room, Mike, and instead of finding the mannequin, he finds a
Oh, it's a cat.
it's a
isn't it?
taxidermied cat with
Right.
evidence, I guess, in some case. He's like, oh, it's just a cat.
Stupid mannequin.
It's so absurd.
Oh, it's so good though.
And yeah, here's the
Yeah, so this is all yeah done on the day of to do a little fight scene.
this is a good sort of Indiana Jones versus the big guy type scene.
Yeah.
This got some cheers for sure in the screening.
100%.
Maybe he's okay.
Yeah, they're all fine.
I love that Vicious Fun score there. Stuff that song that
Yeah.
took forever to work on and rework and stuff it's just so good.
Thanks. That was a lot of fun. It was a big hero moment. Kind
How
of
many variations of it?
She-Ra.
How many variations did you have of it? Like when you're
Oh,
working on that theme?
it was just the one, but it kept shifting time-wise. Like it wasn't rewritten many times. It was just sort of changing the length of certain things or moving bars around just to kind of make sure we were highlighting the action correctly. But it was always sort of a throwback to the Vicious Fun theme, like the title theme.
Right. And when you get it, when you're alone in your studio and you get it, are you like, yeah, that's the one? Like, do you have that eureka moment, or is it always just like iteration 14? What do you think, Cody?
It's a little bit of both. It was I think when we found the theme, it was like, yes, that theme, but now can we move this and shift that and just kind of just tweaking, really. It was and maybe, like, playing with the mix and things like that.
This was definitely an intense process for a movie for you and me.
Yeah, definitely. It was the top of the pandemic was when we started scoring, and so it was like, the world felt like it was a little crazy at the time, and then we had a lot of work to do and just kind of finding this. And at first I ended up scoring it really dark. And then I think that was sort of the pandemic, reality setting in a little bit, and then we lightened up.
Yeah, you're right, because I remember I sat down and did a screening, and we both chatted, and I was like, I just think this is really dark.
A little grim.
And it's a pretty grim.
It's a pretty grim score.
It was fun though, because there was moments and notes and sort of themes in that dark stuff that we kept, that you just sort of, I don't know, lightened up a bit.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We kept some of that vibe, which those two vibes together were great.
Yeah, it ended up working out.
It's like musical neon now. You know what I mean? Like it matches the lights. It's a weird thing to say, but like that theme feels so right with the neon colors in the movie.
Well, I remember we had also discussed stuff that, like, most of the score we wanted it to you could listen to it and you'd bob your head in the car, and if it didn't sort of have that, because the movie had sort of that pacing, that the music sort of had to accompany that and help push that along.
Yeah, it was definitely we did like a sort of a pop score in a way, like modern 80s retro pop score, but definitely darker.
This fitness call out, that was Chad's idea. Where she says, what did she say? Like, yeah,
I thought that was
no,
you, James.
No, it was Chad's. No.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I wanted her to punch him out, but Chad was like, what if she took those safety classes and she knew how to, because I don't even remember what she says, like fist, foot, or whatever.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's like knee, nose, head.
yeah. That's totally Chad came up with that little flair. Because initially we had her kick his ass, but because that wouldn't have been expected. So we're happy with that moment, but it's better because of that little Chad. Chad did something, guys.
Oh,
we just
You're welcome
that?
there.
Yeah.
I was when we watched it in the theater, I was debating whether or not it might have been like that much funnier if we established a great kill, by the way. If we'd established earlier that she was taking those classes.
Oh yeah, no. It to me, I don't know. I feel it makes sense.
Yeah.
It just feels right.
Jesus.
Man, we shot this scene so fast.
It doesn't feel like he did.
It was just two cameras, and we rolled, and we did it twice, and we were in and out in like a couple hours. It was nuts. That was some of the fastest shooting I think I've ever done. I don't know about you, Jeff. That was intense.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
And also choreographing and getting all that stuff done. There's so much movement and stunts and people falling and
remember we
the
didn't
little
have,
things you don't think about, and it's like just trying to get all that stuff done as the day was dwindling down.
and we hadn't done any of the choreography prior. Like we hadn't practiced anything, so we just made it up on the spot as we went, keeping safe obviously, but moving really fast.
Was the phone and improv on the day?
No, we knew that was going to switch because
Yeah.
we couldn't find a typewriter, like a fake one.
That was sort of a joke James and I came up with, was the fact that he would maybe at the end, Joel would get to use a writing implement as his weapon of choice. Would have been a little
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I love this hospital entrance.
Oh, so good. All this stuff is so fun.
When my wife saw the film, she loved the doctor's performance and laughed and laughed and laughed.
And that's what's so great about this film. I always hear people talk about as well, is that even the small characters are characters, you know, like
Yes.
it doesn't matter how few lines they have or how minor they are. Like the nurse here has a moment, the doctor has a bunch of moments, and it's like they could easily be written as a character that walks in, delivers the info that needs to be delivered, and walks out. But you know, the effort that you guys put into kind of making each one of these people have their own moments and, you know, their own little humorous arcs and character quirks and things. It was you know, it really read in the entire movie. You know, it's kind of what makes the movie so fun.
When I first saw the doctor's performance in the rough cut, I was dying. I thought that was, I had the same reaction as your wife.
Yeah. He's so
Shout
funny.
out to Daryl Hines. He's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, and
And
he
it's-
even this is like, you know, we did the, you know, as it was written, and then we went off book, and he went off book, and he does this sort of quirky, weird dropping of the
Dropping the
gloves
glove
coming.
moment,
Yeah,
yeah.
oh, it's so funny. And I think actually in the in the cut scenes on the DVD, I think there's one where he can't remember which direction he came from at the end. So he starts walking in and out of doors, and that scene goes on for forever.
Yeah, it's in the bloopers. Yeah.
Is he an improv guy?
He I was chatting with him because this is at the point where everybody who came to set, now we were pushing to sort of do improv, and you could just see him light up, and he's like, oh my god, I'm so excited. So all of this stuff is him.
Anyway, try not to worry about her. Okay, she's gonna be okay. She is in good hands.
But he's not done like Second City or anything, has he?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's very funny.
I wouldn't be surprised if he had, though,
Yeah.
because he sort of had the same thing that Evan has, where you could tell he's not even thinking about it. It's just happening.
Well, he knows what kind of movie he's in. I
Yep.
feel that's the important part.
Well, I feel like everybody does.
Uh-oh. Guys, bloody footprints. That's never a good thing.
And the score, too, to accompany it is so good.
Yeah, I'd just like to say right now that when for this sort of commentary thing, Steph's getting the short end of the stick because we're talking all over her work. Meanwhile, you know, we can see everything and see the actors and see it, but I'm sorry, Steph.
Oh, that's all right. I know what's there.
It's a great Tom Cruise run he's doing here.
The music here, too, is so good.
Oh, so good.
This was sort of our Terminator weird.
Yeah, I was
sort of
about to say,
Terminator
yeah.
vibe, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
because I think we
it's-
actually cut the scene to one of the tracks from Terminator.
that's Brad Fiedel or whatever I think. he
Yes,
did the mix,
exactly.
so, yeah. But Steph did it better.
Fidel goes west.
I like how he wanted the little booties.
Booties.
He really, yeah. He,
Oh,
he
yeah.
went all the way
Otherwise
with
the-
his
Well, we
costume.
we
What
wanted to
does he
do a
look like?
shot of like his feet walking towards it because it's very 80s and tension filled. But we were like, it would be really funny if he's gone far enough to put the booties on.
Well, he's
You
a
guys
master
really
of
boost-
disguise.
He boosted his eyes in that shot. The color correct, I feel.
We were joking about his mask back then. We shot this movie in November, December of 2019, so right before the pandemic hit, and trying to find a mask for him to wear, like just a normal mask
no.
like we see everywhere, it was a challenge back then. You know, a couple months later, they're everywhere.
So it was CG'd.
Most expensive shot in the movie.
Yeah. I don't remember if we specified or who did what, but at some point here when she basically prison shivs him, it's very on character. Like, so I don't know who did that, but it's good. So you're like, okay, she got him, but then she's like, bam, 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 bam. And then even Evan's like, what?
Did you guys edit
Oh,
this
no.
to add more stabs?
No. We had
she
discussed
did.
this early on with her, and we were like, this needs to be bigger because I think in the script it was he gets stabbed in the eye, but
Right.
but we were like, we really need to make sure he gets his comeuppance, and
Yeah.
she gets a good moment here, and we were like, we should just go, like, if he stabs him, 10 times, we should go like 30 times, and Joel should be
No-
like, holy shit, like shocked by it.
This shot coming up makes me feel like you were pandering to a possible 3D conversion of the film.
When the hand comes out in front of the
Yeah,
eyeball.
yeah.
yeah,
It's-
totally.
It's very like Dial M for murder
Yeah.
kind of moment. You're like, okay, let's get that right in. Did you guys see the eyeball? No? Okay, hold on. Just
Here
bring
we
it up.
go.
Just a
Wait,
little.
hold
Is
on.
it there?
It's not dead yet.
And not dead. More eyeball.
and
and, ah.
I didn't even gag.
I'm very happy with how the
The
barf.
vomit looks. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I'm happy with how Carrie, meaning Amber, plays this scene. She's like still tough but vulnerable. But it's actually a nice coming together for the characters. It's just well done, I think, between the two of them here.
This scene was longer before too, wasn't it? Like I can't remember now, but there was like a more of a monologue between them,
I
Chris
think-
wrote that.
I'm sure. Yeah.
and that's why it's cut.
Yeah.
It was 2 pages long. It was like Thornton Wilder. He's previewing 2020.
It's more great score here.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this just got such an '80s ending right here.
80s jeans and sweater helps also.
Yeah, her wardrobe was badass.
Yeah, she's great.
I
in movie,
scored the
too.
sweater.
Yeah.
Did you?
I could tell.
Oh, you did?
It was very inspiring.
Amazing.
You literally scored it.
So again, Cody, we can argue about this. He's still not cool. That's what he thinks is cool. But
Oh,
when you
yeah,
look at him, you're like, what a
yeah.
nerd. Yeah.
He's cooler than he was.
Yeah,
At the
he's
start of it.
definitely gone up a degree of cool.
Oh
From
God,
nothing.
I'm so arguing with you on that. I think he now has purpose and he's been humbled. I think he's still uncool as it gets.
This is sort of like a uncool Bill Paxton character, though, as opposed
Yeah,
to like an
and-
uncool.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
I have to agree.
This was originally going to be a
convenience store.
Yeah,
Yep.
when we wrote it, and I think this works so much better. And it's also just fun that it's such a self-reflexive movie that you guys
Yeah.
shot it in the drive-in.
And that the
This guy's really great, by the way.
Jacksonville's playing at the
Yeah,
end.
he looks like
Yep.
Bud Cort.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And this was the first scene that we shot with Joel.
Oh, because he had to
Yeah.
shave his
Yeah,
facial
he had
hair.
to-
Right.
yeah, he had
Second
to
day
have
of
his
shooting.
mustache, yeah.
Shoot the ending of the movie on the second day.
Wait a minute, you can do that?
These days you can with the technology they have. Brilliant.
The face he makes there. Nice.
Did she kill him?
He'll be okay.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Don't worry.
Oh, good little twitches. I like the twitches.
Yeah.
I like the smoke outside with the car too. It was a nice touch, guys.
Mm.
Just notice that now.
Did you guys?
And I
do it on
love that,
purpose?
and I guess the walls are all that color too.
Yeah, we just boosted them.
We were actually struggling because there was a snowstorm before this shoot too. So if you look, you can see there's some snow outside.
Nose, cotton candy, pretzels, jube jube, popcorn, more to more. Yep. Getting it. Sorry about that.
Some more posters that James and I did here.
And again, I'm so happy with the non. Oh, that's good. I'm so happy with the non-romance angle. He's now an employee. It's
Yes.
again
Yeah.
against.
Yeah, he's her executive assistant.
Yeah, or intern, I think is her.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can also just see the slight change in her as well. You know.
Yeah, like she's
Well, it's
she
even
likes
her
likes
them more.
wardrobe, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
her wardrobe now has a bit of color, and
Yeah,
her hair is not quite as slick.
right. Like her. Oh, wait, let's
loosened
call
up
out to
a bit.
Steph. Call out to Steph's
Oh,
score
great,
here.
great score at the
Yeah.
end here.
Even though we're all talking over it.
It's all guitar harmonies. That's what saves the day
What
for this one.
Is that the name of your band?
No,
Guitar
like
harmonies.
the guitar harmonies, like harmonic electric guitar. It's like
No,
the
but I
80s
mean-
term for
Oh, I didn't know
yeah,
that.
guitar harmonies.
Well, I think if you have a band, I think that's the name.
There's some more stuff we shot at the same time as the hospital stuff. Actually, right outside the door where Julian gets his fingers cut off.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it.
Cody, you directed this.
That's
Good
it.
job.
Wow, look at that.
I did.
Never forget, Chad Archibald came up with the fitness joke when she beats up the clown.
Who actually came up with that? Let's lay it straight here.
You know, you did. I'm not joking. I remember exactly. We were sitting at a table at Cody's house, and we were going through a reading of the script. And then you said, "Wouldn't it be funny if?" And then I thought, "Yes, it would be." And then we put it in.
I don't believe it. I think there's more to this story.
I would never give you credit that you don't deserve.
That's true. He actually wouldn't.
Yeah.
Evan Marsh.
Well,
We should let it roll to the credits. I like to go to the credits.
keep talking
I
about
don't
the
know.
credits.
We can talk to the credits. Well, guys,
This was fun.
wrap it up. No.
I'm
In
all out of good
closing?
stuff.
Closing statements here.
Closing remarks. Last feelings. Anything not said?
Say it now.
Or forever hold your peace.
Jeff, is this the best thing you'll ever work on? Just say yes. Just say yes.
I'm gonna say the sequel
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Sequel
or the
talk.
series or whatever iteration.
Oh,
VR experience.
look at
It could be.
that.
It could be all of those.
Broadway
Web series.
play.
I don't know if we can get Gord Rand back now. He's on transplant.
He can't refuse.
How could he? Well, this was a fun one. I mean, how long did we work on the script for, too, guys? Like, I don't know. I think it was
Oh, man.
2017.
Well, the first iteration of the treatment was 2013, 2014.
Wow.
And then when did you guys
but
get
we didn't-
involved? It was like 2017.
Well, I think between when I started and when the script was finished it's not like we worked every day on it.
No.
So if we take all of that time and put it together like as if it was a full-time job, the script probably took 3 to 4 months to write. I would say 3 months,
Yeah,
Between
but
Chris
sort
and
of
I?
Then
stretched out.
but spread out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of rewrites because, as we were saying, there was a completely different ending with the motel and all that.
Well,
Jack
we
got
never
stabbed
actually.
and well, I know I read a version. We read a version of
That was a treatment. We
Oh,
never
was it?
actually read that we started. There were some script pages in the hotel, but
Yeah, because I remember there
start-
was a scene with Mike. It was actually pretty
Yeah.
funny.
but it sucked, and so we stopped. We didn't go to the end.
Yeah.
We decided that it shouldn't suck, and we fixed it.
We were very grateful that you discovered the cop shop and the
Check it
hospital.
out. I'm a
Glad we got to
swing
use it.
on the splinter unit.
You are a swing.
Yeah,
And then Brock Hodgkinson, who also did our did storyboards for
fake-
that.
yeah,
For
the
the
fake movie.
Yes. Well, he's also doing storyboards for
Yeah.
Cody on something new, which we
Oh,
can't
yeah.
talk about.
I
Yeah.
should mention that AJ McLaughlin, who is the colorist, also had a song in this in a flash.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was- It
Oh,
was
Yeah, it's
the,
when
when he
when
gets in
he-
a taxi and drives to the follows Ari to
Bob,
the Chinese
yeah.
food restaurant. Bob, yeah.
Oh,
Love AJ. He's colored a bunch of our films at Red Lab here in Toronto. Well, thanks guys and gals.
Thanks, everybody.
Good times.
Thanks everybody
Bye.
for listening and watching and doing all those good things.